Until Dawn Rush of Blood was one of those nearly perfect games that doesn't get the credit it deserves. It combined light gun shooters, roller coasters, and horror in a way that kept it in our top 25 discussions for years. But despite all of our begging and pleading, Supermassive Games never delivered a sequel or even any DLC for Rush of Blood, meaning that we got what we got, and after poor sales of the Impatient and Bravo team, we kind of figured Supermassive Games was done with VR forever, which makes the Dark Pictures Switchback VR a game that, for all intents and purposes, probably shouldn't even exist. For the uninitiated, the Dark Pictures Anthology is a series of flat-screen adventure games with 4 entries so far: Man of Medan, Little Hope, House of Ashes, and The Devil in Me. So if you played those games, you'll probably get the context of Switchback VR and understand the meaning of events and why different characters appear when they do far better than I did. But I'm certainly not playing Switchback for the story. I'm playing it because I want to be scared, and because I really want to shoot stuff. And then before we go any further, we need to talk about these graphics. Immediately after starting up the game, I was shocked by how low res everything seemed, which had me checking my IPD to make sure I didn't accidentally hit the dial somehow. This isn't something we've really dealt with yet on PSVR2, because games so far have looked pretty stunning overall. But Switchback looks like a game developed for PSVR1 and then unceremoniously ported over to PSVR2. Bringing the guns up to your face reveals crisp, clear details, so I don't know what's going on, but it is disappointing, especially when coupled with occasional frame rate hitches. Now, none of this is detrimental to the overall experience, but it is apparent that Switchback didn't quite get the level of polish from Supermassive that it needed before shipping. And that's a shame, because these environments do look good otherwise. Alright, so Switchback isn't blowing anyone away from a technical standpoint, but man, I love me some horror, and I've been known to put up with far worse than blurry graphics for a few scares, which is where my second disappointment of the day comes from. Now, this will obviously vary from person to person, but for me, Switchback VR just isn't all that scary, especially when compared to Rush of Blood. Now, it's partially because of the bland enemies, but it's also because of the subject matter that they've chosen. Tiny, evil dolls walking around, poorly animated slugs hurling themselves at your face, and swarms of rats all make an appearance. But that's nothing compared to the serial killers, squealing pigs, and paranormal onslaughts of its predecessor. Even the now infamous Don't Blink rooms that you all saw in the previews, you know the ones where mannequins only move when you blink, those are kind of a one-off, not as scary as you'd think, and they only last a few seconds. And nothing else in Switchback comes even close to that level of creativity. Now, there are a few good horror moments in Switchback, but they're few and far between. The rest of the game consists of creepy hallways, dark shipyards, hotels, and places that could have been a lot scarier, with a little more effort, like ensuring that they were paired with proper music or pacing. But too frequently, the developers fall back on just turning off the lights to create tension. Luckily though, there's plenty of other stuff here to get excited about, because at its core Switchback is an arcade light gun shooter. All the weapons here are exactly what you'd expect to find: handguns, machine guns, shotguns, and pulling the trigger non-stop and reloading whenever you have a spare second makes this feel like a classic House of the Dead game. The enemies put up a pretty good fight, sure, but the leaderboards present a real challenge here. Playing through these stages again and again, firing non-stop, killing every demon, and destroying every item, especially the ones with the yellow pentagram on them for bonus points, is the only way to beat your friend's scores. The Sense controllers are up to the task and feel good enough, although after playing Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, every other game's weapon haptics pale by comparison. Strangely, I'm pretty sure the headset only rumbled once during my entire playthrough though. Some light haptics while going down the faster sections of the track to create the sensation of airtime would have been really appreciated. One of the massive improvements Switchback has over Rush of Blood is the sheer number of detours at your disposal. You'll encounter railroad switches upwards of 3 to 4 times per level that'll let you take alternate paths. They all reconnect to the main rail within a minute or two, but that does mean it's impossible to see everything your first time through. After you finish each level, the game will list a series of actions that you took, along with the alternate decisions that you could have chosen. Like if you saved this person or let them die, or whether you shot the fortune teller's crystal ball or not. It's funny how many of these there are, considering that there will be stages where you won't even notice that there were any decisions to make. So with each run taking about 3.5 hours, at least that saves a few surprises for your next playthrough. Another noticeable addition that should be mentioned here are the puzzles. Now they're not difficult, and generally the game just tells you what to do. And honestly, I feel like they're so intrusive that I probably could have done without them entirely. Unfortunately, when it comes down to it, Switchback VR isn't the follow-up to Rush of Blood that we deserved. It lacks the charm, polish, and scares of the original. But it's still a great light gun shooter that takes place on a roller coaster in a horror universe. And when you add in branching paths and leaderboards, well, then you've got a game that I'll keep coming back to, despite a few complaints.